9 News at 10 starts right now.
An enormous fire lights up the night sky in Denver, the city's largest fire in years. An apartment complex under construction along Leetsdale, a whole city block up in flames.
We just see massive flames shooting up, which was really scary.
A 5-alarm fire leading to an evacuation alert for more than 20 blocks of homes. Thankfully, no known injuries. Tonight we have team coverage of the enormous firefight, the impact on neighbors, and the latest from investigators.
This fire ran freely from one end of this building to the next. It's a complete city block and it is on fire.
Massive fire tore through an apartment complex under construction in Denver tonight. More than 100 firefighters raced to keep the flames contained and out of the surrounding neighborhood at Leetsdale and Forest. A significant evacuation on the southeast side of the city essentially has been lifted after a 3-hour firefight to knock down that ranger. The glow from the monster fire could be seen across the Denver metro area tonight. Its smoke plume even showed up on our weather radar. Denver Fire says as far as they know, no one was injured. I want to show you what it looked like from the high rises of Cherry Creek directly to the west. This is looking southeast as the fire threw an eerie orange cast over Glendale. Video from Laura and Chris Rutter gives us a look from ground level and a better idea why firefighters were so concerned that this was going to jump out of the Harker Heights apartments under construction and into nearby homes and businesses. Evacuation alerts went out just after 7, telling people to leave that area and the Virginia Vale neighborhood to the south. It's more than 20 blocks of single-family homes and apartments and a senior home across the street from the fire. Denver Fire says it's now safe to return. We have team coverage for you tonight, and we begin with 9 News reporter Shalima Maharaj, who's right there at Leetsdale and Forest. And Shalima, what do we know about this enormous building under construction that burned?
Yeah, it is a massive structure. This is a 283-unit complex. Harker Heights was under construction and was supposed to be opening up in May. But of course, that is not going to be the case. You heard about the destruction of that building. I'm going to step out of the way so you can see the firefight that continues. And this is an immense one that required a 5-alarm response. We have firefighters, more than 100 of them here from Aurora. We also have them from South Metro, and of course, the Denver Fire Department itself is here as well. And so they have been attacking one particular area very hard as of late. We've got numerous ladder trucks, but there is one portion of the building where you can continue to see that bright orange flickering, those flames licking at the edge of that building. And that has been an area that they've been concentrating their efforts on for some time now. They, of course, upgraded that response. Earlier on, it was a 3-alarm, but this fire has been so significant that it warranted that additional response. We heard from an official with Denver Fire earlier on about just how destructive this fire has been.
The damage is massive. I am not a building engineer, but there's a lot of fire and it's running completely through that building. As you can see, we've got water pouring in from every angle that we can, trying to knock that fire down. There's a lot of damage.
Now, earlier on when we got here, we ended up seeing a lot of smoke. We saw some embers, a lot of embers blowing, quite a bit of wind. And then we also saw debris that was flying. And we're talking about sizable debris that was falling onto cars, that was falling onto people as they were walking. And it was incredibly difficult to breathe. There were a lot of people on another side of the building that had masks on as well, understandably, because that air quality had just diminished so quickly. And Denver Fire says that was really at the peak of that fire when all of that debris had started to fall. Debris that's about the size of my cell phone or larger that was falling onto the ground, and it was just really difficult to be able to make your way through.
Yeah, Shalima, I know that for folks who were west of the fire, they could see the glow, they could see the smoke plume. For people east of the fire, scary situation. We heard about people with ash falling in their yard at Leetsdale and Quebec, southeast of there, and you can imagine how disorienting that would have been.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, for us as well, we were checking on each other, myself and my colleague Alex. We were just kind of going back and forth. Are you okay? You breathing all right? Just because it was so dark over there. I mean, we also saw that immense orange plume that you mentioned earlier on in the show. That was just right overhead. And then we also just continued to see a lot of those embers raining down on that particular part of the city that we were in. And as we were walking, we could just kind of see that over the power line lines, over trees in some of those residential neighborhoods. And you can imagine how ominous truly that looked, and how frightening that situation would have been for anybody living in the area and receiving those evacuation notices as we did on our phones as we were coming down here. So a lot of people being told to be on alert and also to maybe consider getting out just because of how precarious the situation had become.
All right, Shalima Maharaj, excellent work for us tonight. Thank you, Shalima. I want to give everybody a live look from Sky 9 that is over the fire. Now, they have been working this from every single angle for the last 3 hours, and yet you can still continue to see that toward the interior of the building, there's visible flames. And the early firefight, as Shalima mentioned, was to keep this thing from getting into nearby buildings. You heard the operations chief for Denver Fire talk about how this was a complete city block that it was burning. If you know this area, this building is north of Leetsdale, and it's kind of one building east of Forest through what would be like the Glencoe and the Great Blocks, and within a building of Hudson on the east side. So that thing is a monster structure that was being built and turned into a monster fire tonight. 9 News reporter Colton Chavez is also on the ground for us. Colton, you've been talking with witnesses and some of the folks who got evacuated.
Yeah, Kyle, and I just wanted to add on top of what you said, in this area, tons of apartment buildings, people all out here on the roads checking out what happened. Earlier tonight when we got here, huge crowds of people. Some of them said they just saw it from afar and they wanted to know what was going on. Others say they were evacuated.
Well, right when I got home, we got an alert on our phone that said had to evacuate everything. And you could just see people gathering and just starting to see smoke, light. And all of a sudden you saw the fire hose just start spraying water everywhere. And I go back to our apartment and all of a sudden our power's out. And so just trying to figure out what's going on.
And Kyle, we're even starting to see some of the other impacts from this fire. A building owner right here in the nearby area said he was hoping that these apartments were going to bring more business his way. He says he doesn't feel like that's going to be possible now. Kyle?
Yeah, all the years of work that went into construction so far. Colt Chavez, thank you for your work tonight. I'll give you another live look at the firefight from Sky 9. Denver Fire saying that this is the largest fire that Denver has seen in years since another construction site fire in Glendale, which Denver Fire covers. That was a couple years ago, but this fire on par with some of the biggest fires that Denver has seen in the last 20 years, going back to a very large fire in Glendale that I want to say was 2013, 2014. There was also the Emerson Street fire in which there was a death a couple years ago in Denver. But this is the size of firefight that this city rarely sees, and some exceptional work by Denver Fire with help from South Metro and Aurora tonight to get this thing under control. We'll continue to update this breaking story on air as well as on 9news.com. And reminder, you can always get the latest information on the 9 News app as well. That's free to download in the Apple and Google Play stores. Up in the mountains, snow is really coming down tonight. This is a live look at Keystone. Some of the higher elevations are going to see up to a foot. The Colorado Avalanche Information Center has issued a special advisory warning of the particular avalanche danger around Aspen and Crested Butte. Spring 9 News meteorologist Corey Reppenhagen. Corey, you were telling me that it's not just the fresh snow that they've gotten, but also the periods of sunshine.
Yeah, exactly. That is the major factor. So when we get those long periods of sunshine and dry conditions in the mountains, it really impacts the snowpack, and it creates a layer of very soft snow. It's kind of like granular sugar sand, and the snow just slides right off of that thing. The radar is quiet now. The snowstorm is wrapped up. Nothing left except a few flurries in a few areas. This is the smoke plume that we saw not too long ago. This was at 7 o'clock tonight. The radar beam picking this thing up. The radar beam's about 1,000 feet off the ground, so this was throwing huge particles into the air. We even saw some orange reflections in here, indicating some very large particles, and the thickest smoke extended out about 15 miles past E470, even into the Smoky Hill neighborhood, ironically enough. So the radar is quiet now. It's not going to pick up any of these light flurries that's happening right now. These will wrap up by about midnight. night. You're not going to see any additional accumulation out of these flurries. This snowstorm is pretty much done for the night, but we'll see some totals anywhere between 5 and a foot of snow in some of the higher elevations. And this is the next 3 days here in Denver. We are looking at record heat, especially on Sunday, which will come along with some high fire danger. We've got warm conditions heading straight through Monday. I'll have more on that in the forecast in just a few minutes.
They would come across the property and then just come down here to the water. This is where they drink. So that's, a couple of the neighbors have seen it also, of a mom and 4 cubs, and this is the side of a mountain where wildlife lives. Bring protection, bring spray.
There's a search on tonight for a third mountain lion in the foothills of Larimer County after a suspected mountain lion attack killed a woman yesterday. CPW says hikers on the Crozier Mountain Trail south of Glen Haven, east of Estes Park, they saw this mountain lion near the woman's body from about 100 yards away. Wildlife workers say the hikers were able to scare the mountain lion away by throwing rocks, but by the time they got to the woman, she was dead. A search by ground and air found 2 mountain lions nearby. They were then euthanized. Pathologists will test those animals for human DNA to see if they were involved in the attack and check them for rabies or other issues. Mountain lion attacks on people are extremely rare. Colorado Parks and Wildlife say there have been 28 recorded attacks since 1990. Last time a person was killed by a mountain lion in Colorado was 1999. CPW estimates Colorado's home to about 4,000 adult mountain lions. They live mostly in the foothills, canyon country, along the mesas of Colorado. They tend to move into lower elevations in the winter as they follow deer and elk. The trails are still closed in the area where that suspected attack happened. All the trails listed there are in the Crozier Mountain Trail area. U.S. Forest Service will be the one to determine when those trails are safe to reopen. President Trump has blocked a clean drinking water project for rural counties in southern Colorado, an area that overwhelmingly voted for Trump. The president has repeatedly said he's looking to punish Colorado for keeping Tina Peters in prison for her scheme to tamper with voting systems. 9 News reporter Mark Salinger went to Bent County today, where the Coloradans who need clean drinking water told us they aren't interested in politics or revenge.
The small town of Las Animas in Bent County would benefit from the Arkansas Valley conduit if it's ever finished. The town relies on an expensive reverse osmosis system that also produces a lot of dirty wastewater. In other parts of the valley, the water people drink is not clean and potentially harmful. For decades, they've been hoping the water conduit would pipe clean water from Pueblo into their town. Trump's veto of the bill that passed the House and Senate unanimously threatens that.
The first thing that went through my mind was, really? I mean, I was shocked. I was disappointed. Particularly, I know people well who have spent their adult lives working and focusing on this work and on this project, and I was disheartened.
Kim McDonnell is a former county commissioner in Bent County and a lifelong resident here. She's a Republican, but she's struggling to understand why the president wants to halt this project. Bent County is one of the poorest in the state, and she says something as basic as clean drinking water would help bring more people and industry to her area.
Why do we veto this project that is meeting such a deep human need at this particular time, in this particular place? You know, a lot of eastern Colorado and southeast Colorado is very heavily Republican and supportive of the current administration.
That was Mark Salinger reporting. Construction on that Arkansas Valley conduit really got going in earnest in 2023. That was during President Trump's first term. His team proudly took credit for it. They said, you know, America used to be the kind of nation that built things. But now that project is far from built out, and the local governments on the route say they cannot finish it without the Trump administration's support. Today, I spoke with Democratic Senator Michael Bennet, who we should say is also running for governor in 2026, about the Arkansas Valley conduit. He's been working to get it completed for all 15 years he's been in the U.S. Senate. I asked him today, if this is going to cost Colorado that clean water funding, science funding through NCAR, disaster funding that Trump has withheld, the moving of Space Command out of state, should Colorado just give the president what he wants and free his political ally from prison? Is there any point that you say, whether it's that or whether it's NREL or anything else, maybe we just give the man what he wants? Just just let Tina Peters out of prison. If that'll get him to turn his focus onto another blue state, just give the man what he wants and maybe he'll go away.
I think that is a recipe for disaster, Kyle. I think that is a recipe for a race to the bottom that could destroy our democracy. You know, it really matters. The rule of law really matters. Our system of federalism really matters. You talked about what Donald Trump has the right to do as president and what he doesn't have the right to do as president. He has no right to pardon Tina Peters, who is convicted by a jury of her peers in a state court in Colorado. He has no right to take away money that's been appropriated by the U.S. Congress just because he doesn't like the state of Colorado.
You can find my full, unedited conversation with Senator Bennett on the next YouTube channel and on 9news.com.